Welcome to the latest episode of the E&T Critical Targets podcast, in which we look at ways that the engineering, science and technology sectors can help build a better future for everyone. My special guest today is Dr. Claire Malone. Claire is not easy to introduce because her interests and attributes are so far-ranging. She is a science journalist with a background in particle physics. Claire gained her PhD as part of the High Energy Physics Group at the University of Cambridge, and the root of her research interests was in understanding the behaviour of the fundamental particles that comprise the universe. She is passionate about making science accessible and frequently contributes to public discussions about the best strategies to communicate science to diverse audiences. Hence, she's been invited to deliver keynote addresses at several international conferences, in addition to a TED Talk, which has over 2 million views to date. Throughout her career, she has had to devise techniques to negotiate not being able to use a pen or keyboard directly due to her physical disability. And Claire, today, will talk on this podcast by using computer-generated voice. So Claire, I'm delighted to have you on the podcast today. This series looking at the critical targets we set back at 2021. And the category you're going to look at is global family. This is so broad and has different meanings for different people. But when I first suggested this to you, your instinct was the effect of one specific technology in our global family, and that technology is generative AI. So why is it going to be so significant from a technology perspective?
Firstly, the applications of generative artificial intelligence, generative AI being programs that create new content based on data that it has been trained on, are vast, and are starting to impact every aspect of our lives. As a science journalist, I am regularly commissioned to write pieces on the effect of AI on different sectors, from its effect on the education system to how we diagnose illness and provide health care. I like to think of it as the biggest technological step forward since the development of the World Wide Web. Specifically thinking of how this technology could affect the global population as a whole, one of the greatest impacts will be in how we approach work and employment, and the consequences for the global economy. AI's capacity for task encroachment is considerable, which is one of the reasons why it is important to discuss it in the context of your global family theme. There is an important distinction to be made here between task encroachment and role encroachment. Many roles in the workplace are comprised of many different tasks. For example, the role of a journalist involves researching stories, interviewing people, creating interesting articles, etc. The role is not comprised of a single type of task. Generative AI encroaches on the role of a journalist by being more capable and efficient at performing specific tasks, such as automatically correcting spelling errors in a whole document. So, we can ask ourselves, which tasks are most at risk of being encroached on by artificial intelligence? A good way to predict this is to think about how routine, or otherwise, a particular task is. I don't use the word routine to indicate a task is boring, but rather how straightforward, and hence easy to automate, it is. As AI and machine learning technologies advance, they will progressively encroach on tasks traditionally performed by humans, particularly in the tech industry. AI is increasingly capable of performing complex tasks that require cognitive skills, decision-making, and even creativity. That multitudes of applications have already been found for generative AI, so soon after its introduction, underscores its transformative power, not just in specific sectors, but across the entire economic landscape.
And in the context of what we're talking about today, could those tasks that are viewed on as being encroached in one part of the world be a new capability in another? What I'm driving at is, and you touched on this in the first part of your answer there, is generative AI a tool in itself that can enable a global levelling up?
I definitely think AI will generate new jobs, much like how computer programming roles emerged with the advent of computers. One notable example is the role of a prompt engineer, which has become very popular recently. However, it's important to acknowledge that fewer new jobs may be created than those replaced by AI. It is also a complex question to answer because, as the Oxford economist Daniel Susskind points out, the rate at which this encroachment into the job market happens will vary in different parts of the world, depending on how the job market is structured. Despite this, AI has some potential to level out access to advanced technology that could empower individuals and businesses around the world to innovate on a more equal footing. Assuming, of course, that they can access the internet. Take education, for instance. One application of generative AI that I think has potential is the way that online students' tuition services, for example, Khan Academy, have started adapting the behavior of AI chatbots to mimic personal tutors. Normally, when you enter a question into a generative AI chatbot, such as ChatGPT, it will provide you with a fully formed answer in the form of an essay. For now, I am leaving aside whether that answer is factually correct, or whether the AI has hallucinated. The point is that, this is not how a good tutor supports students. Rather, when a student asks a question, the tutor replies with prompts that help them reach the answer themselves. This is the behavior generative AI can be programmed to replicate. I would like to stress that these programs cannot be a replacement for a human tutor or teacher, and neither should they be. Instead, they are an additional tool that students can have access to when the teacher is not available, in some respects, like an interactive textbook. Using generative AI in this way is still in its early stages, and I think we need to carefully monitor whether it is effective in assisting students in the way that it is intended to be. However, applications of generative AI such as this could have a really positive impact.
So, taking all of what you've said into account, what is your prediction? Will generative AI play a huge role in shaping the future, or is it a bubble that is about to burst?
I don't think the AI bubble is about to burst. I believe we will only find more uses for generative AI. Each of the big technology companies, like Apple and Google, are investing huge amounts in developing this technology. They see artificial intelligence as the next frontier to integrate into their products. There is also a huge demand for generative AI products, particularly as they automate the more tedious or time-consuming aspects of roles that people would rather not be doing themselves. But let's think about the kind of influence these technology companies have in our lives. To have successful AI products, they need to collect a lot of data on us. We can think of generative AI as a glorified predictive text program. The output is determined by the dataset it is trained on, data that they have collected about how we interact with their products, such as our smartphones. This means they have a window into almost every part of our lives. This gives them a certain amount of power. The data they collect is frequently used to make advertisements more targeted and effective, in addition to a whole range of more sinister applications, such as the creation of deep fakes, and influencing how people vote in elections. There is huge scope to give AI algorithms a bias towards a particular ideology or cause. Given this level of influence, we need thorough discussions on how to deal with this issue, that involve as many people as possible.
Okay, moving directly on to our critical target. Global family covers so much. The idea of having this as a category was to recognise the need for a global levelling up, at least some basic levels of equality and opportunity for all. In creating our original critical target for this category, we said at the time 785 million people in the world, that's about 1 in 10, did not have access to clean water. And our target was that by 2030, that basic resource should be available to all. Now, I checked with WaterAid, who provided a 2021 figure, and their latest estimate was that 703 million people in the world don't have clean water close to home. And UN figures, incidentally, are even more alarming. But nonetheless, these figures are improving, but still scandalously high. Is this a political problem, or is it something that the world of technology and engineering can tackle?
I think it is a combination of both. Access to clean water is a basic human requirement. It affects everyone, and the fact that so many people still lack this essential resource is a global issue. The fragility of water access is compounded by global, climatic, geographic, political, and strategic factors. The global supply of fresh water is unevenly distributed, with some countries having abundant resources, and others being severely water scarce. Factors like population growth, economic development, and climate change are increasing the water demand, making this issue even more pressing. Many experts have highlighted the strategic importance of clean water, and warned of its potential as a source of conflict in the future. Given these stakes, it's clear that addressing water scarcity requires a concerted effort from both political entities and the technology and engineering sectors. On the political side, governments have the means and responsibility to act on an international scale. They can implement policies, provide funding, and facilitate international cooperation to address water scarcity. Cities need constantly operating and upgraded water capture and disposal infrastructure, and farmers need a predictable and reliable water source. Governments are crucial in coordinating these efforts and ensuring that water resources are managed sustainably and equitably. From a technological standpoint, AI has great potential to help solve these challenges. AI can optimize water distribution, predict usage patterns, and detect leaks in real time, dramatically improving efficiency. So implementing this technology can help manage the water infrastructure more effectively, ensuring reduced waste. Just to clarify, in the case of water management, the data analysis would be conducted by artificial intelligence systems designed to spot trends in large amounts of data, rather than generative AI systems that create new content.
There are so many areas where technology, in particular the AI technology you've been discussing, can be used for the common good, like health, transport, education, communication, just as an example. But where does the responsibility lie? Is it with the technology sector, or does it need political weight and money behind it?
Responsibility for addressing the common good undoubtedly has political dimensions. However, it's important to recognize that the definition of the common good often depends on the technology available at the time. This can make discussions somewhat circular and less productive. Different political perspectives offer varying responses. Command economies have historically directed technology toward the common good, with some success. Conversely, many believe significant advances have come from a more free market approach. There's a general consensus that a combination of free market and government approaches has served us well over the past several decades. However, the debate continues, with strong opinions on both sides. In the developed world, market economics strongly suggest that certain technologies are developed primarily for their commercial attractiveness rather than just for the common good. This highlights the need for a balanced approach, where both market forces and governmental oversight work together. Finally, it's worth noting that terms like common good can have different meanings to different groups, leading to potential misunderstandings.
Even within the confines of that commercial common good balance, do you think that there are any specific areas where the technology sector needs to do more, either in developing the solutions or actually delivering them? Our critical target involving water stands out for me here because it demonstrates fundamental human decency, which we seem to be incapable of delivering. even though the technology is there and so is the water.
As I have already discussed, AI can play a significant role in helping us meet the critical targets regarding water scarcity. This issue is becoming more urgent due to climate change and population growth, and increasingly, traditional water management methods can fall short. However, while the technology is available and continuously improving, its implementation is often hindered by local political conditions. While technological solutions are essential, they can't be imposed where political and social conditions are unfavorable. Political issues affecting water scarcity are complex and varied, making them difficult to address with off-the-shelf solutions. Technology companies, despite their innovations, have limited control over the deployment and management of their solutions. This is where political will becomes crucial.
And as an added nuance to that, there are ways in which the developed world is impacting the global south. The effects of global warming arguably hits those areas harder, for example. So do we need to temper development or at least consider global consequences as we push technology forward?
Great question. When it comes to the impact of technological development, particularly AI, it's crucial to consider the global consequences. However, I don't think it's practical or even desirable to temper the development of AI. Countless examples have shown that once the genie is out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. While it is still developing, we need to focus on it being more inclusive. Currently, generative AI models often reflect the demographics of those who typically go into software development careers, which can lead to biases and less relevant, or even offensive, answers for other populations. For example, when ChatGPT was released in 2022, it was very easy to design a prompt that would result in the chatbot defining a good scientist by race and gender, namely white and male. By including data representing more diverse populations in the training set, issues such as this become less common. It is also possible to program generative AI systems to not give responses that marginalize any particular group. To do this effectively, the engineers who develop these systems also need to come from diverse backgrounds, to ensure that all viewpoints are represented. In this way, we can ensure that AI benefits everyone, and not just a select few. This strategy is backed by a whole body of research, which shows a workforce made up of people from similar backgrounds tends to come up with narrow-focused solutions. To overcome the biggest global challenges, like climate change, our scientists and engineers of the future need to come from all walks of life. We also have to accept that the increased use of generative AI is unavoidable. Therefore, it's essential to manage its application thoughtfully, rather than resist it. It's imperative to engage in meaningful dialogues about the ethical use of AI. Ignoring such issues could exacerbate existing hardships.
That's a thought-provoking call to arms to end on. Thank you very much, Claire. Great talking to you. This is one of 7 episodes in our Critical Target series. You can now listen to all episodes by searching for the ENT Critical Targets wherever you get your podcasts, or by visiting the podcast section on the ENT website.